When people remember 73 Easting, they often picture a storm full of burning vehicles and American tanks firing through dust at Iraqi armor that could not answer quickly enough. That image is powerful, and it is not false, but it is too small. The battle matters because it was more than a dramatic tank fight on a nameless grid line in the Iraqi desert. It was the moment when months of political crisis, coalition deployment, air attack, logistics, reconnaissance, training, and command judgment converged in one violent afternoon. To understand why 73 Easting belongs in the history of armored warfare, we have to see it not as a duel between machines, but as the hinge of a campaign where movement became contact, contact became destruction, and a cavalry screen opened the way for a corps. If you would like to move beyond the podcast, you can see my available books at militaryauthor.me. And at trackpads.com, you will find magazines and galleries with hundreds of thousands of photos and videos to explore. The first reason 73 Easting matters is that it proved reconnaissance could become decisive in the modern armored battlefield. The 2 Armored Cavalry Regiment was not sent forward as a sacrificial tripwire or a wandering patrol. It was the eyes, ears, and shield of 7th Corps, moving ahead of the 1st Infantry Division to find the enemy before the Corps stumbled into him blindly. In older wars, cavalry might locate an enemy and then wait for the main body to arrive. In the Gulf, the speed of the campaign changed that relationship. When the regiment found the Iraqi defensive seam in the storm, the act of finding became the act of fighting. Reconnaissance did not merely report the battle, it created the conditions under which the next phase of the battle could be won. That lesson reaches back to the beginning of tank warfare. At Cambrai in 1917, tanks showed that machines could break into a fortified system, but the armies using them still struggled to exploit surprise and sustain movement. By 1940, armored warfare had become faster because radios, aircraft, infantry, artillery, and tanks could be joined into a moving system. By 1991, the problem had changed again. A modern army did not merely need tanks that could cross ground and fire accurately. It needed formations that could move across hundreds of miles, see in darkness and dust, communicate across wide spaces, and make decisions faster than the enemy could recover. 73 Easting stands near the end of that long arc, where the tank had become one part of a larger organism. The second reason it matters is mission command, a phrase that can sound bloodless until men must act beyond a limit of advance under artillery fire. At 70 Easting, the cavalry had a control line telling it where to halt, and that line existed for good reasons. Large armored forces need boundaries and limits, especially in featureless terrain where friendly units can drift, overlap, or shoot one another by mistake. But the enemy ahead was not waiting politely for the plan to be revised. Captain H.R. McMaster, Colonel Don Holder, and other leaders had to recognize that stopping too long could give Iraqi defenders time to recover. The decision to press beyond the line was not reckless disobedience. It was disciplined initiative, the ability to understand the purpose of an order deeply enough to adapt when the battlefield changed. Technology mattered enormously, but 73 Easting also warns us not to worship technology as if it fights by itself. The M1A1 Abrams, the Bradley cavalry fighting vehicle, and thermal sights gave American crews real advantages in range, protection, mobility, and vision. In the Shamal, when dust turned the desert into a brown room, thermal sights allowed crews to find heat signatures that the naked eye might never have seen in time. Yet a thermal image still had to be interpreted by a human being under fear and pressure. A gun still had to be laid, a target still had to be identified, a driver still had to keep the vehicle moving. The battle was a victory of technology joined to training, not technology replacing training. That training is one of the deepest reasons the battle deserves its fame. The American crews who fought at 73 Easting had not become skilled on the afternoon of February 26th. They had been shaped by years of hard gunnery practice, field exercises, maintenance routines, radio discipline, crew drills, and after-action reviews that punished sloppy thinking before combat could punish it with death. A tank crew is a tiny society under steel, and every man inside depends on the others to do his job without delay. A cavalry troop is a larger society, where platoons must move, see, fire, and report as parts of one body. When Eagle, Ghost, Iron, and the other troops fought through the storm, they were not improvising competence. They were revealing it. Combined arms gave that competence depth. 73 Easting is often called a tank battle because tanks provided the most memorable violence, but tanks did not fight alone. Bradleys carried scouts and added firepower against bunkers, vehicles, and infantry positions. Artillery from supporting batteries struck Iraqi positions and helped prevent enemy guns from stabilizing the fight. Attack helicopters and other supporting arms added reach and pressure beyond the direct line of sight. Engineers, mechanics, medics, ammunition handlers, and fuel crews stood behind the visible fight, making sure the regiment could move, fire, recover, and keep going. The American advantage was not one vehicle against another vehicle. It was a connected system against a defensive system that could no longer connect itself quickly enough. The Iraqi army's failure at 73 Easting was not simply a matter of bad tanks or cowardly soldiers. Some Iraqi crews were in prepared positions, some tried to fight, and some weapons remained dangerous even after weeks of air attack. The deeper problem was that their command system, visibility, communications, morale, and ability to maneuver had been damaged before and during the battle. The coalition air campaign had already made movement hazardous and command uncertain. The Western envelopment had struck from a direction Iraqi planners had not handled well. When the cavalry arrived through the storm, Iraqi units needed time to understand, warn, shift, and coordinate. They did not get that time. In armored warfare, being late is often fatal. The battle also matters because it was both famous and misunderstood. If we remember it only as a perfect American victory, we flatten it into myth. The 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment held enormous qualitative advantages, but it was also forward, exposed, operating in poor visibility, and facing Iraqi armored forces that outnumbered it locally for a time. Mines, artillery, confusion, and a wrong decision at the wrong moment could still have made the fight far more costly. Victory came because the regiment turned risk into tempo, not because risk disappeared. That is the honest lesson. Modern armies can dominate, but they do not become immune to chance, friction, fear, or the consequences of command. Nor should the battle be remembered without the human cost. Iraqi soldiers died in vehicles, bunkers, trenches, and open desert, many of them caught in a collapsing system created by decisions far above their rank. Others surrendered in large numbers, exhausted or stunned by a fight they could not control. American soldiers fought with skill and courage, but the wider battle space also included friendly fire, confusion, and casualties that remind us how dangerous speed can be, even for the winning side. The Gulf War often looks clean in memory because it was short and technologically impressive. 73 Easting forces a more serious view. It shows precision and confusion, dominance and fear, success and suffering occupying the same battlefield.
Strategically, 73 Easting mattered because it was not the end of VII Corps' fight. It was the opening that allowed the next blows to land. The regiment's success made the pass-through by the 1st Infantry Division possible, and that pass-through carried the battle into Objective Norfolk. From there, the Corps continued toward Medina Ridge and the final destruction and withdrawal of Iraqi armored forces before the ceasefire. This sequence is crucial. The cavalry did not win the campaign alone. It found, fixed, and tore open the defense so that the heavier divisions behind it could exploit the opening. That is why 73 Easting is best understood as a hinge, not a trophy.
Its place in the history of armored warfare is therefore larger than its duration. In 4 hours, the battle displayed the late 20th century answer to questions armies had been asking since the first tanks crossed shell-torn ground in the First World War. How do you restore movement to a battlefield? How do you keep armored forces supplied across distance? How do you find the enemy before he finds you? How do you use speed without losing control? How do you turn a local success into an operational result? At 73 Easting, the answer was not one thing. It was reconnaissance, mission command, thermal vision, artillery, aviation, logistics, crew training, and armored shock working together at high speed. The battle's legacy also includes a warning for later armies. 73 Easting showed what a well-trained, technologically advanced armored force could do against a slower, damaged, more rigid opponent. It did not prove that future wars would be easy, or that every enemy would present the same target, or that technology would always deliver such a clean first-shot advantage. Later conflicts would show urban combat, insurgency, drones, precision missiles, electronic warfare, and political complexity challenging armored forces in new ways. Still, the fundamentals remained visible in the dust of 1991. Tanks matter when they are part of a system. Sensors matter when trained people can interpret them. Speed matters when command can control it. Courage matters most when joined to discipline. Why 73 Easting matters, in the end, is that it captures modern armored warfare at full speed and in human scale at the same time. From one distance, it was a corps campaign shaped by presidents, generals, ships, aircraft, convoys, and divisions sweeping across the desert. From another distance, it was a troop commander deciding whether to press beyond a line, a gunner seeing a hot shape through dust, a driver holding direction, a loader working by touch and habit, and an Iraqi soldier realizing the defense around him had come apart. That is what makes it endure. It was a great cavalry fight, a decisive hinge in VII Corps' final drive, and a hard lesson in how technology becomes victory only when people, training, and command turn it into action.
You've been listening to Famous Tank Battles. These battles were never just about machines. They were about doctrine, terrain, firepower, logistics, and the hard problem of turning shock into victory. For more military history writing and books, visit militaryauthor.me. And for magazines, podcasts, and a massive archive of military photos and video, visit trackpads.com. Thanks for listening.